Fan, you won't believe this. Newcastle, already without Yoane Wissa, have now been hit with another worrying update. Our new South Korean gem, Park Sung-soo, is injured with a knee problem and is out of action. I'm Rodrigo, and you're watching Newcastle Mania, the channel made by a fan and for fans who live and breathe Newcastle United. You blinked, and Newcastle were making headlines everywhere. And today we're diving headfirst into this story that's all about injury expectation and the future of one of the most talked about young promises in the squad. But before we get into it, just a quick reminder, if you love Newcastle and want to stay up to date with everything that happens at our club, hit that subscribe button now. It costs nothing, it helps a lot, and it makes our black and white community even stronger. Now fan, this is a serious one. Park Sung-soo, the 18-year-old lad who had just broken into the first team, confirmed on social media that he's dealing with a knee injury. That's right, the youngster who came in with so much promise, made his debut in big friendlies, impressed the fans, now has to deal with a forced pause. And to make matters worse, he's not the only one. Yoane Wissa, signed for £55 million, is also sidelined with the very same knee problem. Expectations around the Congolese forward were huge. He already knows the Premier League. He's shown he can decide matches with Brentford, and he was brought in to raise Newcastle's attacking level. But before even making his debut in black and white, the injury struck. Eddie Howe has already confirmed that Wissa is only expected back after the October international break, which means by then he will have missed at least 7 official matches for the club and 2 for his national team. That's a massive blow, because we're talking about a player signed to be an immediate starter to change games. Now, in Park Sung-soo's case, it hits differently. We're talking about an 18-year-old lad living the peak of every young player's dream. He came in from Suwon Blue Wings full of expectation, shone in pre-season friendlies back home in Korea, was cheered on by the fans, earned a place in the first team, and even got public praise from Eddie Howe. The manager even said Park had earned the right to train with the first team, something extremely rare for a player who had only just landed in England. In other words, the club didn't just see him as a distant prospect, but as someone who could already help in the present. And that's what makes this injury so painful. Park was building confidence, starting to show himself at St. James Park, even being compared to other young talents who now shine in the Premier League. Suddenly, the process is interrupted. For such a young player, this can be a massive mental and physical shock. The frustration of stopping when everything was going well, the fear of losing his place, and the pressure of coming back even better than before. And all this while carrying the weight of being one of the first major South Korean talents to wear the Newcastle United shirt. On social media, fans reacted with a mix of sadness and hope. Many showed love for the lad, saying this is just a phase and Park will come back stronger, just like so many young players have before. Some even pointed to Callum Wilson himself, who had to deal with multiple injuries early in his career, but kept fighting until he became a Premier League reference. That positive outlook gives Park strength, and it shows that fans understand that a player's journey is made not only of victories, but also obstacles. On the other hand, concern is real. Lots of fans asked, will an injury this early affect his development? After all, Park is just 18 and was rising fast, taking every minute as a big opportunity. A pause now could mean loss of rhythm, loss of confidence, and even loss of place in the squad, especially in such a competitive club like Newcastle. In the press, the tone was also mixed. Some journalists highlighted Newcastle's bad luck, losing Wissa to a knee injury and now another new signing facing the same issue. Others preferred to praise Park's resilience, pointing out that Eddie Howe has already shown belief in him and is unlikely to leave him aside once he's fit again. Even media outside England reacted, especially in South Korea, where the news spread quickly among fans who were buzzing about seeing one of their own making it in the Premier League, only to be hit with this unexpected setback. In short, the reaction has been massive. English fans are divided between concern and optimism. The international media is watching closely, and South Korean supporters are showing full support for the youngster. In the end, what's clear is that even injured, Park Sung-soo has already achieved something rare. His won hearts, sparked expectations, and become a talking point both on and off the pitch. And here's an important detail. Lads and lasses, Newcastle have been betting big on the academy and young international talents. The arrival of Park wasn't by chance. It was part of a bigger plan from the club, A plan that isn't just about mega money signings, but also about scouting promising players from all over the world. For the board, bringing in an 18-year-old lad from South Korea was seen as a strategic move, thinking about both the present and the future. And that gamble seemed to be paying off really quickly. Park Sung-soo had already shown his quality in pre-season friendlies against Espanyol and even Aston Villa, when he surprised a lot of people with his confidence and his ability to take on experienced defenders without fear. Inside the club, the internal reports were clear. He had the potential to develop under Eddie Howe and could become a useful piece in the rotation throughout the season. But now the picture changes. Behind the scenes, the order is total calm. The coaching staff know the worst mistake would be to rush his recovery and end up damaging the lad development. Howe has already made it clear that Park has earned the right to train with the first team, and that won't be taken away from him because of an injury. Quite the opposite. They are being extra careful to make sure he comes back confident, fearless, and without any risk of setback. Another point that's being talked about a lot inside Newcastle is the importance of managing expectations. Park was being heavily praised, even compared to established Premier League players, and that can create massive pressure for a youngster who's only just taking his first steps in England. That's why the club will focus not only on the physical side, but also the mental side, helping the lad deal with this delicate moment and turn frustration into motivation to come back even stronger. Behind the scenes, there's also an understanding that Park represents more than just football. He's a symbol of Newcastle's global reach. South Korean fans have been following his journey closely, and the club know there's extra responsibility to look after this gem. After all, the project is long-term, and Park, even while injured, is still a central part of this future that the Saudi owners are building. Eddie Howe himself had already sung his praises. He said the lad had earned the right to train with the senior squad, that he was one of the best players on the pitch during the friendlies, and he highlighted especially Park's confidence and his ability to dribble past defenders. In other words, Howe believed Park really could be a surprise weapon this season. If we look at other clubs, we've seen similar stories. Young players who pick up an injury right at the start of a European career, but come back even stronger. Vitinha himself, who's now a global star, went through ups and downs before making it. So, if Newcastle managed this moment well, Park could come back even more mature and prepared. Now, the immediate consequence is clear. Newcastle lose depth in attack. Without Wissa and without Park, Howe will have to rotate the squad, maybe use players who weren't really in the plans, and maybe even fast-track the debut of other youngsters. For Park, the impact is even bigger. The way the club handle him now could define whether he becomes a key player in the future or ends up remembered for injuries. Lads, it's tough to see a young player full of potential stopped by an injury, especially when we know he was living the peak of his dream. But at the same time, this could be his chance to show resilience, to come back stronger, and to win the hearts of the fans at St. James Park once and for all. Park Sung-soo is only 18 years old, and his story at Newcastle is just beginning. So that's it, Black and White family. Park joins Wissa on the injury list, and Eddie Howe will need to show all his creativity to deal with this tough start to the season. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Park Sung-soo will be able to bounce back and shine in the black and white shirt in the future? Drop your opinion in the comments, because I'll be reading every single one. And of course, don't forget, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and come be part of this community that lives and breathes Newcastle United every single day. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.